Hey everybody, it's Angela and I am back with another process video. And today I'm going to use this fresh picked collection by Photoplay. And that's mostly because the last couple layouts I've done were stash dives where I had to rummage through my supplies and bring them together to make a layout. And I wasn't really feeling like doing that this time. So that's what these collections are so great for, is bringing all the items together and making it easy. So the layout I'm going to do, I was inspired by Chamel's Facebook Live that she did the other day, and she did a layout and she kind of challenged us to use the recipe that she used on that layout. And then I saw Jen Scow took up that challenge and she posted her layout using that recipe, and that inspired me as well. So what I'm kind of doing here is I'm using Chamel's recipe and I'm kind of scrap lifting Jen's layout. And so thank you to both of you for your inspiration and for posting those things online so that, you know, all of us can get excited and inspired and dig into our stash. So the recipe was to use 11 different strips of paper down the left hand side of your layout, and then you use one long strip down the right hand side, and you'll see here in a little bit how that looks, but right now I'm just cutting out my small strips to go down the left hand side. There's one of them, and then the other side of this blue plaid I'm going to use for my long strip that I'm going to put down the right hand side, so I just set that over to be used later. And I'm also going to use some of the cut apart sheets or cut apart items as some of my strips as well, because it was kind of close as to whether I was going to have enough different patterns in this collection to go all the way down the left hand side, so I really had to dig in and use all of it. So this is kind of obviously a food themed collection pack, and the photos I'm going to scrapbook today are of some vegetables that I had dried, and I had made my own herb mix. So I had dried like 2 kinds of onions, some red and some white onions, some peppers, garlic, celery, and I had put them all in my food dehydrator, and then I ground them up and put them into spice jars, and that's what I use when I'm cooking. So these colors really went well with those photographs. And here you can see the small strips, so I'm putting 11 of them down the left hand side, just kind of bringing all the colors in from the collection. And I used 2 of the pieces from the cut apart sheet as 2 of my strips. And it's really a great recipe for using all the patterns in a collection. Sometimes, you don't quite know how to use a pattern, or it might be a little overwhelming, like that red one with the dots might be a little overwhelming on its own, but as a little strip it's perfect. So yeah, it's a great way to dive in and be able to get all those patterns that we so love as scrapbookers, onto our layouts. And so now I'm looking for pieces that I can embellish with. Going through the cut apart sheet. There's a lot of great sentiments about being garden fresh, because we had grown all the vegetables ourselves and we just had a lot of extra. I had a lot of extra celery this year, so I wound up freezing a lot of it, and then I dried a lot of it to use as spices or as herb. And so and we had a lot of extra onions and peppers. The garden just did really well, and I hate throwing it away, but I can only can and freeze so much of it, and give it away to people and that kind of stuff. If it does really well, we may not have an outlet for it, but I want to make sure it gets used and not wasted. And so here I am, I'm just kind of placing the strips down the left, putting a little bit of adhesive on them. And I'm kind of making sure that the right hand side they're at different spots. They're not all lined up perfectly. And I didn't measure any of these. I didn't try to cut them super straight or anything like that. That's just part of the charm. Just kind of distributing the colors through there. I love that floral at the top. And so those are my strips. I do want the wording straight. And then I'm going to put this one down the right hand side. And now I'm going to trim off those along the back just to even that up and see what I've got to work with. And the background paper is just a piece of white watercolor paper. It was just some extra that I had laying around because I couldn't find any white cardstock. And then these photos were a little bit large. They were taking up a lot of real estate, and I don't really need them to be that large, so I'm just going to trim down each side and cut them in half. And then I wanted them to have a nice white mat to match the background. So I just find another scrap of watercolor paper to mat them on, because that watercolor paper isn't a true white, which worked fine with this this collection pack because it wasn't a really bright white either. It was just a little bit of a yellow white. So I'm just putting a thin border around my two photographs. And that's going to allow me to move it around the page a little more. And I just wanted them to kind of not be vertical. I want to place them more horizontally on the page. So there, I've got those down. I was thinking about that, but they really need to be a little bit more horizontal. And so this is kind of where I start to struggle a little bit on, you know, where to place things. And this is where I kind of looked at Jen's layout and kind of scrap lifted a little bit how she had her embellishments placed around her photos. So hers were a little bit more horizontal like that. And then she had some strips above her photographs. And so I'm going to use this border strip off the sticker sheet in the collection pack. And I just love how it brings all the colors in, and it also has that really decorative edge. So I think that's pretty as well. And then I realized that it's kind of lacy, but the little interior bits hadn't come out. So I'm just going to take my piercing tool here, get rid of some of these little inside pieces so that when I stick it down to the white, it'll show up through there and give that lacy look. But they were being just a little bit stubborn on me here. And yeah, I love making herb mixes and spice mixes like this. I usually don't put salt in because I like to add the salt myself, but and sometimes I'll make them spicy. You know, I'll put in some dried hot peppers because I do dry some really spicy peppers. This one I had one hot pepper and then a couple varieties of sweet pepper that I put in there. And so my husband just really loves them on his eggs in the morning, and I put them into soups and when I'm marinating meat, you know, in a dry rub and stuff like that. So we use them quite a bit. And so here I am, I'm just taking a few more stickers from the sticker sheet. And on Jen's layout, she had a couple of circle items. And I think that helps to break up some of these, you know, hard corners. And then because I hadn't glued my photos down and had started sticking everything down, I thought, you know what, I better just get these placed because this is how I like it. So I'm just kind of sticking some glue back behind there and trying not to smear it all over my project. So there, I've got those placed how I like. And then I go back to my sticker sheet and see what else I can put on there. I had a few more corners there that need to be glued down. And if you haven't joined Shamel and Jen's Facebook page. You should really check them out because, like I said, there's just a lot of great inspiration. There's a lot of very talented ladies on there posting their layouts, and yeah, I get inspired by them all the time. So if you haven't gone on there and joined their Facebook group, you should totally check it out. So now I'm just placing a few more word phrases throughout those paper strips just to give a little more interest in there. Kind of placing some of them tone on tone, and others I'm just bringing color into areas that need that color. And then to soften this side just a little bit more, I like this floral. So I go ahead and I place that down. And then I start thinking about my title. And I really like these wood grain thickers. The collection pack does come with some wood grain flat stickers, but they were a little bit too big to fit in my space here, so I just went with my wood grain thickers instead. And then these little green tile stickers for part of it, just to have a mixed font title. And then because I got my title really wonky last time and crooked, I make sure to use my ruler. I didn't have a T-square. I thought I had one, and I looked at my husband's, but he only has one of those big ones you actually use on a large drafting table, and it won't fit on my craft table with all the the junk I've got on there. It's so long. So I'll have to double check it next time I get a coupon or something at Hobby Lobby or something like that and get a small T-square. But I made it work. I got it on there much straighter than I did my last layout. So there I'm just looking for another sticker to bring a little more color right up there. So I'm really liking that. And then I also noticed in Jen's layout she had some staples in a couple different spots. So I'm going to do the same thing. I like that extra touch of texture just in a few areas. So I'm liking that. And then I figure I better get my journaling down on here. So I use my pencil and this ruler to draw my lines and then go ahead and do my journaling. Then I thought another texture which would be good would be some enamel dots. So I'm just pulling out those and putting them in a few places in that strip border there on the left, and then this little cluster here on the right. And then that is pretty much my completed layout. And I really love how it turned out. I mean, it's different. I don't think I would have designed this myself, so it was so fun to be able to look at someone else's design and recipe and then look at Jen's interpretation of that and kind of do a scrap lift, and to use a collection pack. It really made this layout go so quick. You know, I really enjoy my stash dives because I enjoy using my stash and I have fun digging through it, but sometimes I just don't feel like that and I want something that's going to come together a little quicker. So using, you know, a sketch or a recipe or scrap lifting is just the perfect way to get a scrapbook layout done quickly. So thank you guys so much for watching, and if you have any questions or anything, just leave me a comment down below and I will see you in the next video. Bye!